Third down and 20.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty podcast. We're on episode 15. We're with the usual crew, Jake and Lounis. This is our first video episode, first one that'll be up on YouTube. So check us out if you listen to us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can finally see me pat myself on the back, just like this. What's up, guys?
It's good to be back in the books, and I am looking forward to getting down to what happened and all our Dynasty takes this week.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Congrats to any of our listeners who are still alive at this point in the playoffs.
And we take
Congrats
some credit for that.
All the credit, except for Jake, who killed Lil Jimmy in episode 13. I'm a little upset about the video thing because now anyone who didn't know us, they probably thought we were really good looking, and now they see us.
Yeah, they're like, oh God.
Moving on, let's get into it. Jake, what are your week 14 highlights?
So, obviously, last week I talked about Carson Wentz getting benched, and Jalen Hurts came out this week and played pretty good. I think the Eagles looked pretty much as good as they've looked all season, if not better. He had, he went 17 for 30, 167 yards passing, 1 touchdown pass, and they added an additional 18 carries, 106 yards on the ground. He did fumble once, but the Eagles looked really good, and they beat a team. Obviously, they didn't have Drew Brees, but the Saints are a good team. They have a really good defense, and the Eagles' offense put up, 20. I think it was 27 points, something like that, which is a decent amount of points. 24 points.
Yeah.
So they put up a good amount of points against a really good team, and Hurts looked good. Obviously, Brees coming back next week for the Saints is huge. Michael Thomas is out now, I think. That just came out today. But what do you guys think about the Eagles?
Let Lounis take this one.
So with Hurts, he played well. There were some surprising parts of that game. As well as Hurts played, I do want to see him be better kind of passing the football because it was an overall good performance, but 17 of 30 for like 167 yards. It's like, but I still believe in him because obviously it's his very first game and against an extremely tough defense. I thought it would be way worse. Like I thought he would struggle a lot more. So he impressed me with that aspect. I was confused why the Saints was playing him as if he was a pocket quarterback. They allowed him to scramble whenever he wanted to. So as long, generally fantasy-wise with Hurts, as long as he's a starter, he's a pretty good fantasy quarterback because he's always going to give you those. I'd probably say at least 60 to 70 rushing yards a game and giving you a decent floor, at least until he becomes a more polished passer, which I don't envision happening like this season right away. He's going to bank on his legs a lot. So he's valuable if you have him on your fantasy team to start for the rest of the season. But he looked good. I think him being in there also helps Miles Sanders because they ran way more read option plays. You see the defenses have to respect the fear of, and like Wentz can run, but obviously not like Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts, he had a 100-yard rusher. He was a 100-yard rusher. The craziest stat I saw involving that game was how the Saints didn't allow a 100-yard rusher in 55 straight games, and then there were 2 that game. Obviously, a big part of it was the 82-yard run. But I do think Jalen Hurts being in gives a boost to Miles Sanders because he's going to get way more touches. So no, he looked good. I think fantasy-wise, Jalen Hurts is a really nice quarterback. And that was my genuine opinion on the Eagles side.
Yeah, so I guess my question to you guys is, what do you value Jalen Hurts at right now from a dynasty perspective? Would you give up a late first for Jalen Hurts and just the hope that he is, the Eagles quarterback next year? Or are you guys sitting more in the second round or even less than that?
I mean,
if I go ahead, JT.
I feel at this point, consensus is like, I don't know if you guys follow Ryan McDowell or any of the other Dynasty guys, but in the studies and everything, it seems like he's valued now, Jalen Hurts, above players. He's valued above Daniel Jones. I saw a couple taking him above Kirk Cousins, which I'm not ready to do yet. But in terms of first-round pick and draft capital, it seems like he is going for that late first kind of thing, and that's just not something I'm willing to pay for Jalen Hurts. I mean, his ceiling, maybe Lamar Jackson, but It's
Oh, I
just
don't know if he's
not.
as athletic as Lamar Jackson.
It's like I agree. Like that's his ceiling though. Like I don't ever see him. I mean, first off, that ceiling is pretty high considering Lamar Jackson nearly had, or I think he had the historic based on points per game, historic fantasy season. Just don't see like I can't comp him to any quarterbacks currently. I mean, I know we're heading into kind of a new age, but he doesn't have that great of arm talent. He's okay at running. Like he's average at both things. I don't think he's really special at either thing. I just don't see it lasting. I also could totally see Carson Wentz getting the job back. It definitely could just be a confidence thing, and if he just gets confidence back, battles it out during the summer, could be Carson Wentz's position, and then what? Jalen Hurts is just a backup again, and he's not worth much at all.
Yeah, kind of going off what JT said. If you're trading for Jalen Hurts at this point, it's a huge gamble because if they do decide to move on from Carson Wentz, it's for sure worth it. No question. I think he's worth that late first. But you could end up trading for him and they keep Wentz. Um, and then Wentz ends up staying the starter. Maybe he has a bounce back year next year. And then you're just stuck with having paid a late first for a backup. Or Wentz, he's not old yet. He's 27, so he should be entering like generally the prime of his career. But that's the part that makes it risky. And I don't know if I'm willing to take that risk, like not knowing what's going to happen with their quarterback situation. I think I'd rather pace slightly more, knowing Wentz is gone, to like for sure be able to know, okay, he's going to be the starting QB. But if you trade from that, because if I had to if I had to bet money on it, if I had to give a final guess, my guess is they're keeping Wentz, and that Wentz would beat him out in a training camp competition and enter next year as a starter. But obviously, we don't know. There could be a trade that happens, which would boost Hurts' value a ton because he'd be the starter entering next year. But it's a huge gamble. I don't know if I'd be willing to take the risk.
The only other thing I take away from this is, regardless of who the Eagles quarterback is, it looks like Dallas Goedert is still going to be fed targets. He's probably going to be the team's leading receiver in terms of targets, which normally means production. So I think of any of the Eagles players currently, Dallas Goedert would be the one that I'm still looking to buy.
No, I
Yeah.
completely agree.
That's fair enough. I think you guys pretty much covered everything on that one. So my next highlight is Derrick Henry, Tractor Cito. It's his time of the year. Seems like every year during these last few weeks of the year, he just decides, you know what, I'm going to go off. And last week he had another amazing game, 26 carries, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. The question I have for you guys, does he reach 2,000 yards? He currently has 1,532 yards, and his last 3 games of the regular season are home versus Detroit, in Green Bay, and here's the kicker, in Houston. Does he get 2,000 yards? He needs 468 yards in those 3
This
games.
is 156, 156 yards per game. Now, I'm assuming the Titans aren't going to be in any spot where they're just like they're in the playoffs, but their seeding's not set and whatnot. So I'm assuming they're going to have to go out and try and win all 3 games, right? Which makes me think, yes, like he will hit it. He just has to average, what did I say, like 160 yards per game.
I'll do the math real quick, but it's about that.
I think it's 156. 156, I think, is the number. And
yeah,
last time he played Houston, he ran for 212 against them. We've seen what Detroit's run defense is. We've seen what Green Bay's run defense is. They let David Montgomery run over both of them. Like 156 yards per game, not that like it's crazy to say that's not that much when you consider Derrick Henry, but it's really not that much. And Jake said like we're near the end of the season. Our teams, especially like Detroit and Houston, they're tired. They're done. It's the end of the season. They're not playing for anything. Hold on. Detroit might still be trying to play for something. I don't know. Their team though is just decimated with injuries.
What are they playing for? They fired their coach. They're not winning.
They're still technically in the hunt.
coach.
They're still technically in the hunt. They're trying to look good.
They are?
I believe so. They're only a game behind the Vikings last week. I'm pretty sure they're still technically able to make the playoffs. Because the NFC, you know how the AFC is very, like, there's a lot of teams congested around like 10 wins right now. NFC, you've got those top heavy teams, but then there are a bunch of teams that only have like 7 or so wins right now. So I do think it's still possible, but regardless, Detroit probably is giving up. They probably are ready to pack it in. Definitely Houston. So, cold weather, are they going to want to tackle him in Green Bay? Like, he'll just run you over kind of thing. I'm going to say he does do it. I'm going to say he hits the 2,000 yards.
Yeah. I mean, I think he gets it as well. I mean, Houston and by themselves, he can run for 300 versus Houston. That team has no run defense whatsoever. Yeah. And on top of that, Detroit and Green Bay, nothing special on defense. So I think he gets it. And I think he's really shown over the past like 2 or 3 seasons that he's just one of the top running backs in the league. So that leads me to my next question about Derrick Henry is, are you guys nervous about Derrick Henry moving forward? He obviously shoulders a big load every single week. Always gets 25 plus carries every single week. Are you worried about him breaking down over the next few years?
Next few years, yes. Because I was gonna ask, it depends on like when should I start worrying. I think this year he's fine. Obviously, he's
I'm not
played
talking
amazing.
this year. I'm talking about next year.
Next year, I think next year he'll be as good. I think it's that season in 2022, 2023 is where I start to get like if I'm a Derrick Henry owner, I'm probably offloading him and trading him away, trying to get high value this offseason or next offseason. That's what I would do if I owned Derrick Henry. Because again, like he's a tank, and I think next year he'll be as great. But there comes a certain point where like he gets an insane amount of carries every. It's not just like 20 carries a game. And a lot of times it's like 28 to 30 carries a game. So that adds up. And like he's a truck. He's like kind of like a trucking running back. So he'll run right into contact. The next 2 seasons, I feel good about him, and he'll still be good after that. But I just don't think as dominant as he has been. So if I owned him, I'm trying to trade like high value for him either this offseason or next offseason.
Sell too early rather than too late.
Yeah, hit him with the Belichick.
I know. I mean, there are 2 ways I look at this. It's this year, unless he, just miraculously doesn't get 3 carries in the next 3 games, he'll be over 300 carries again. So it'll be 2 straight years of over 300 carries, which will be a concern for the durability of a running back.
But he's not a normal running back. He's not a normal running back. No running back's built like Derrick Henry. We haven't seen something like this before.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, that's where I'm getting my next points. So I agree, Derrick Henry, probably if you want to recoup the most value off Derrick Henry, this offseason is probably the offseason where you're going to sell him. Because even if he duplicates this year, next year, which he's already having a ridiculous year, he's an RB3 overall, he duplicates it, like his value is still going to go lower simply just because he's getting older. But I do think there's a solid chance he does have a similar season next year. And do you really want to sell him at that point when you're probably competing for championships if you have Derrick Henry on your team? Like, I just don't want to sell him this offseason. I'll sell him next offseason. And you know what? If he doesn't end up keeping the same value or any similar value, I'll consider that the cost of holding him. Like, I'm willing to risk it with Derrick Henry on my team. Obviously, if you have nothing around Derrick Henry, like why you have Derrick Henry now anyway, you should have sold him earlier. Like, you should be rebuilding now. A typical standard team who has Derrick Henry is probably competing for the playoffs, and they probably will be competing for the playoffs next year too. So I'm keeping Derrick Henry.
Right. Yeah, so I think we're good to move on. Yeah, JT, what do you got from your highlights from last week?
Yeah, so this was a great game. Kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
Like, I knew the Browns were, decent. They were pretty good. Like, they were 8-3 or 9-3 going into this game. Boy, 47-42. The Ravens beat the Browns. There's a lot we could talk about from this game. I mean, the Lamar Jackson whole theatrics, allegedly pulling apart Paul Pierce, maybe not.
Yeah.
But who I really want to focus on is Baker Mayfield. he's like all of a sudden he just decided to be good again. He had like a historic rookie season, and then they put more pieces around him, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, like he's the next big thing. Like let's go out and buy him. He's super valued." He was definitely valued at QB1 just a couple off seasons ago. Then obviously things didn't go as planned. The whole OBJ experience hasn't really panned out yet. The passing game's not great. They definitely rely on the run now. They do have two great running backs on the team. But these past 2 weeks, after a tough start at the beginning of the year, then OBJ goes down. The past 2 weeks, Baker Mayfield's thrown for over 300 yards both games, threw for 4 touchdowns against the Titans, who objectively don't have a great defense, and 2 touchdowns against the Ravens, who have a solid defense. He did all he could to keep him in the game against the divisional rivals, which is a lot more than I really expected of Baker Mayfield. So, is he for real? Like, is this something that we're trusting going into next season? We were talking at one point just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, about when we were talking about the QB landscape. Is he there in 3 years? Have your opinions changed on that? Because I think we were concerned that he might not be there 3 years from now.
So I was one of the people that kind of doubted him, and I was a Baker skeptic. But let me tell you, these last 2 games, this is the most impressed I've been with Baker his entire career. Like I know he had like a decent rookie year, but these last 2 games, and Tennessee and Baltimore are 2 like playoff caliber teams. Like it's not like he's doing this to like the Jets or something. Like these are 2 good teams, and he's doing this without Odell, without Austin Hooper. So I've been really impressed. Like he kind of showed me up, especially on that Monday night game against Baltimore, who has a really tough defense. Like if you just look at their Week 1 matchup, where Baltimore won like what? It was like 38-7 or something like that. It was a ridiculous blowout. To now, like even though they lost 47-42, and then the only reason they lost is because the safety lost track of Hollywood Brown on a 4th down play. That was I've been impressed. So I think Baker has earned himself the starting position, like even past this initial contract. Like with how good they are, what's the Cleveland record now? Are they 9-4, 9-3,
9-4.
9-4? Like that's really good, and arguably like if people want to say NFC West is the toughest division, if the NFC West is the toughest division, I think the AFC North is the second toughest. That's a hard division where he has to play the Steelers twice a year. He has to play Ravens twice a year. He had to play Bengals are kind of down bad now without Burrow, but he had to play Burrow earlier this season. So twice earlier this season. So I think he's earned a starting spot. For like just moving on past this contract, he should still stay the starter.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kevin Stefanski has done a fantastic job building an offense that fits Baker Mayfield, and I think Freddie Kitchens just didn't do that. He tried to open it up too much and put too much on Baker's plate last year, and it really showed that, like, he's not the guy. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to go out here and just, feed wide receivers and feed tight ends and just run the offense himself. But Kevin Stefanski's offense, ground and pound, let Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt do their thing, and then do some play action, and he's gonna get some wide open receivers, is exactly what we're seeing. And he's not gonna miss a wide open throw. He's not bad. He's just not Patrick Mahomes. You can't expect him to, go out of his way to win a game. Like that's not who Baker Mayfield is. He'll yell and scream and do all of his theatrics that he likes to do, and plant his flag in the Ohio State, whatever. He likes to be all out there, but in the NFL, he's more of a, I don't want to use game manager. I think it's a bad word for him, but he needs that great ground game behind him. And Kevin Stefanski's done a great job establishing Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Both of these backs, like I've said this multiple times, both those guys are running back ones in my opinion, and they will continue to be at least next year.
I don't think game managers should have such a negative connotation with it.
Because
I know people use it, I know people use it as a diss, but you can still be a good quarterback in a game manager. Like
it got kind of a bad rap because people, I think, kind of tended to use it for guys that just throw a lot of check downs and a lot of short passes. But that's not exactly what it means, because like you see, Baker has thrown some really nice deep balls and thrown some guys wide open. It's just he's not a game. When I say game manager, it just means he's not being Patrick Mahomes, and the game's not completely surrounded by him. It's not Baker's going to go win us this game. It's okay. We're going to do a team-oriented game, offensive game plan. Nick Chubb's going to carry the ball, 15 to 20 times. Kareem Hunt's going to touch the ball probably about 15 times as well. And then we'll have Jarvis get the ball in our playmakers' hands, Jarvis Landry, and even like Austin Hooper when he's healthy. Njoku had a nice catch on this week. There's a bunch of guys. So I just think game manager has really gotten a bad rap, but he's proven himself, and I think he's definitely earned his second contract. I don't think it'll be anywhere close to this mega deal people expected when after his rookie year, but he'll still get a good size second contract.
Last side note from this game, and then we can move on. Rashard Higgins of the Browns in receiving. Jarvis Landry also had 9 targets, 1 less than Rashard Higgins. But let's focus on Rashard Higgins. Is he a flash in the pan and is he going to go back to relevancy when Odell comes back? Or is he someone that we should actually keep our eye on?
No.
If Odell comes back, for sure, no. Even if he doesn't come back, I'm not in love with him. Like, I don't think we can get into it later, but I don't think Higgins is the receiver that benefits the most if Odell doesn't come back.
All right.
I agree.
All right. Teaser from Lounis. Moving on. This one's sneaky. I might Trojan horse you guys right here. The Raiders fired their defensive coordinator, Paul Guenther, I believe was his last name. They replaced him with they replaced him with Rod Marinelli, who's about 90 years old. Guess what? Surprising to no one, their defense still stinks. And this was a little sneaky way to talk about my boy, Justin Herbert, who's just been having a historic rookie year. Just kind of wanted to hijack my highlight to talk greatness about Justin Herbert. What do you guys think going forward about Justin Herbert? Now, we had this discussion in a group chat and it was really funny about Terry Bradshaw went and compared Justin Herbert to John Elway and Dan Marino, which obviously we don't think is true. But he did bring up a good point. It's hard for Terry Bradshaw to bring up good points right now, but did mention you do see a lot of rookie quarterbacks play really well and then have a sophomore slump. Do we see that happening with these rookie quarterbacks? I mean, I know Justin Burrow is probably not going to be healthy for at least training camp, probably not the start of the season. So we can safely assume he most likely will. And Tua, we haven't seen enough from already to really consider it a sophomore slump. So I think Justin Herbert's the only guy we're going to be really looking at for a sophomore slump. Do we think he has one?
No. What is it? Herbert, you got to realize kind of what he's playing. He didn't get a full training camp. Never mind, not a full training camp, but not even a training camp, the minimized one, as the starter. He was supposed to be the backup for most, if not all, of this season. It was kind of thrown in right away, his first game, 15 minutes before the game or something. But Herbert, man, he's insane. I do think Burrow and Tua will both be good quarterbacks in the NFL. But Herbert, I think it's hard to argue against him not being the best rookie quarterback from this class. And even last year, as good as Kyler is now, Herbert is playing much better as a rookie than Kyler did last year as a rookie. You saw the potential with Kyler, but Herbert right now, he's averaging the most passing yards per game out of any starting quarterback. With not starting the first 2 or 3 games, he leads the NFL in 50-yard completions. He already has 27 touchdown passes, and he's going to pass 30 over these last 3 games. He's been insane, and it's not like he's had much of a running game this year with Eckler out. So Herbert, I've kind of been blown away with. I don't see him becoming bad. Maybe he's not quite as good, but I expect him to still be playing at a really high level next year.
I'm going to just chime in real quick with Frank's producing this episode right now. He's the head of 3rd and 20, the normal 3rd and 20 podcast.
Shout out, Frank.
Frank. He actually made a good point. He said having no training camp actually helped Justin Herbert because he didn't let Anthony Lynn corrupt him as much. And we saw it. We saw it in the game where Anthony Lynn
almost lost him in the game.
The Chargers were leading most of the game. They lost Derek Carr, who we'll talk about in a minute. Backup quarterback. Chargers leading most of the game. Obviously, they charger it and let the Raiders come back because Michael Badgley doesn't know how to make a field goal. His life depends on it.
That was bad.
Yeah. So now Anthony Lynn, the smart coach that he is, decides that his 4-9 team, who has no shot of making the playoffs, he's going to go and he's going to run his franchise quarterback 3 straight times, which made no sense to me. That's just like a drop in the bucket for Anthony Lynn's decisions this year. You can make a whole highlight reel, all the things that Anthony Lynn's messed up on. I hope he's not the coach next year, which is something else that you do have to consider when we talk about Herbert. He might have to learn a new offense where he has to go through a little bit of growing pain. But
he already learned a new offense this year.
That's fair. This is his first year taking snaps under center too, because of the whole college thing.
Yeah.
Jake, what do you think?
Obviously, I don't see a huge regression from him. I could see a minor one just from the points that you pointed out. Probably a new coaching staff. I also think that having a full season of tape available for NFL defenses to watch, it'll make it easier to game plan for him. But I just think he's a really talented player, and he'll figure his way out in the NFL. He might have a small regression, but I really would not be worried about Justin Herbert.
I have 3 comments, quick.
3.
3.
Not 1, not 2.
3
comments, Lounis.
3. So listen, first off, Anthony Lynn. The funniest thing with him was him trying to take on smaller responsibilities last week and be like, I'm just going to be in charge with the special teams. Then that whole field goal debacle at the end of the first half and the first week he's in charge of special teams. It's of course that happened. Second thing I was going to say, we don't need to get too into it, but I think Gruden's a little bit on the hot seat. Not so much he's going to get fired or anything, but he's getting paid 10 years, $100 million, and he's been 4-12, 7-9, and now he's 7-7 with 4 straight losses. Is it 4 or 5 straight? He's been on a rough stretch. So I think it's what were you gonna say?
No, they're just the Raiders. They're not going to fire Gruden, even if he's horrible. Let's be real. I agree he hasn't done a great job, but he's John Gruden. They paid him a lot. He's not going anywhere.
I do think if Derek Carr stays healthy, I think they win this game, which we can move into with you, Lounis. But one more thing before we do move on about Derek Carr. Yes, they're not on a losing streak because they beat the Jets in the middle of some of their losses. But they held Kansas City close. They almost beat them second time. They're the reigning Super Bowl champs. They're the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. They played 2 really close games against them and beat them one of them. The Atlanta game was really bad. I don't have any excuse for Gruden on that one. It made no sense to me, really, how they lost that one. And then
they should have lost to the Jets. They should have lost to the Jets.
They should have lost to the Jets. They should have lost to the Jets. But yeah, it's not great. It's not great, but I do think he's turned around the team to the point where you feel a lot better about the Raiders now than you did years past. Being in a division where Patrick Mahomes is going to run it for the next Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to run it for the next 10 years, it's tough because then you're automatically fighting for a wild card spot, which is not easy for teams, especially because you're having to face that tough opponent twice a year. I just don't see who else you're going to get over John Gruden anyway, who you're going to like better. John Gruden's definitely the guy I would want, turning around the Raiders. But again, Derek Carr got injured, so that could lead us into Lounis's highlights. What do you got, Lounis?
Yeah, I thought Mariota for getting thrown in there looked pretty impressive. I don't know if I'm alone on this, especially fantasy-wise. I think fantasy-wise, he kind of has more upside than Derek Carr because of his rushing floor. He had 88 rushing yards on, I think it was 9 carries, and then a rushing touchdown as well. I just thought he made it kind of interesting. Between him and Derek Carr, Derek Carr is going to need a new contract pretty soon. They have Mariota signed for cheap. I just wanted to get you guys he was 17 of 28, 226 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and then 88 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. I thought he did all right for just getting thrown in there. They didn't have Ruggs playing. He was just kind of thrown in with Aguilar and Darren Waller, and Darren Waller went off. So like the chemistry's there between him and Mariota. I just kind of wanted your guys' thoughts on him, his performance coming in, and then possibly between him and Derek Carr.
First off, fucking Darren Waller killed me in my fantasy matchup.
Yeah, of course. Once I'm eliminated, he drops 30.
Yeah, I faced him in a different league also, and God, he just killed me again. But Mariota looked pretty good. I'll give him credit. That throw to Waller down the sideline he put it right where it needed to be, and Waller brought it in. It was a dime.
Did you see all the Titans players? You see all the Titans players talking about that?
Yeah, they're giving
on
him
Twitter.
love on Twitter.
Yeah.
What they
like,
say?
Where was this? They're like, where was this when he was on Tennessee?
Like that's not the Mariota I know.
Yeah, but then there's like more like, oh my god, like they're happy he's doing well too. Like he seems to be
I'm sure they're
a
happy,
likable
but
guy in the locker room.
Yeah. He also on the ground looked great. 88 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Like that's another great day and had some value. But I don't think Mariota. I've been down this road too many times. He's not. I've believed in him too many times since being the number 2 overall pick out of Oregon. Just being hyped up. I've been down this road too many times. There's no way he's gonna be a successful quarterback long term. He's already 27. He's on a second team. He's the backup quarterback. And Derek Carr's looked good. Derek Carr's honestly looked pretty good. I think, like JT said, I think the Raiders probably win this game if they have Derek Carr. Just because the way the team plays with them is different than the way they play with Mariota. They had to change the offense a little bit. Gave Jacobs more carries, feed Darren Waller, which is not always bad. It's not a bad thing, but I think they really left in the playbook, made it more simple, and to try to make it work, and it did. But I don't think it could last over a full season.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I think this was either the first or second week. I think this was the second week or maybe third. I think he was first activated against the Jets. But Mariota came back. So you gotta assume he wasn't having many reps. They have to tailor the offense to him, which they did not have nearly enough time to prep for. So it was impressive. Like it was a good performance, but in the long term, do I see it panning out and him becoming one of the 32 NFL starters? I don't think so. He is that kind of backup, though, that I like him over most backups in the NFL. I like him over most second guys, which that's saying anything really in Dynasty, even in Superflex. Not much. Like, just don't see him having the long-term value of anything more than.
If you have Derek Carr.
Yeah, I don't love having handcuffs though for, quarterbacks because like I'm sure probably people who had Lamar Jackson probably had RG3 as a handcuff in case Lamar.
You can't predict an injury.
No, but that is the thing. It's like you're holding this guy for the whole time, and then he goes out, and before the injury even happened, like he didn't look that good. Like you're just holding him, waiting for something to happen. Like I'd rather do talent over handcuff. Like if I have Deshaun Watson or like a Kyler or a Russell Wilson, like I'm not going out and I'm not getting their handcuffs because.
What you don't want Geno Smith? Smith's feet. Did you not watch his West Virginia game?
I don't want them. I don't want them. Like I'd rather take my chances on like some of those like other tier like Jameis Winston or I don't know who else, like maybe Jarrett Stidham, but not really. But like players like that who do have a potential shot of being a starting quarterback at some point.
Yeah.
Like handcuffing doesn't make sense to me.
I agree. Just because a lot of times when a quarterback goes down, the backup's not worth starting anyway. So.
Yeah. I mean, some super flex leagues where like there's gonna be no one available, maybe, but it depends. If you have a third QB, you're never starting the backup. The last comment I want to say on this game, this is the thing I remembered from like the third point I was gonna make earlier when I said I had 3 things.
Right, we only got through 2, so now here's point 3.
Yeah. He's obviously still very good in fantasy. and anyone would love to own him. He's still extremely
Are you
valuable.
going to talk about Josh Jacobs?
Are we as I'm talking about Josh
Why?
Jacobs.
Both of you said this.
I'm talking about Josh
Why?
Jacobs.
Why? He
I
had.
agree. Go ahead, Lounis. Go ahead.
Listen, I'm going to talk about Josh Jacobs, and you're going to like it.
Go.
Josh Jacobs. I'm pulling up the stats right now. 26 carries for 76 yards, 2.9 yards per carry, 1 touchdown.
Most of his yardage came on one long run, too.
Yeah, and he had a 20-yard run. So besides that, he's on 25 carries for 56 yards. I feel like we've just because of the amount of touches he gets, he's always going to be fantasy relevant, and he's an extremely talented running back. I'm not going to put it all on him because it could also be the Raiders O-line. I need to watch the film because I know the Raiders don't have the best O-line either. And we saw he had that one catch where he just juked the fuck out of some corner for safety, and when he's in open space, he's lethal. But while that Raiders O-line is how it is, if he wasn't getting a ridiculous amount of touches. He's still a top 15 back. I just don't think he's kind of as high as some people would put him in. I don't think he's close even to I'm trying to think guys in his tier.
He's in the second tier of running backs behind the elite tier.
I don't put him in that second tier.
I mean, we did our running back
rankings last week.
We did our running back rankings last week, and you, Lounis, had Josh Jacobs as running back 7. So you do.
7? Oh, did I?
Exposed.
Well.
I mean, to be fair, JT had him at 7. I had him at 6. So we all think pretty highly of Josh Jacobs here.
Oh no, yeah,
no, but well, no, I knew I had him somewhere in that top 10. But I think that's the point in terms of for having him at 7. I'm just because that's kind of the expectations I have for him. I find myself having weeks where I'm kind of disappointed. I don't know. It could. I think it's also a big part because of the Raiders O-line. But come on, 2.9 yards per carry on 26 touches.
Yeah,
so, a few things about him. I obviously I'm on your side more so, Lounis, where it had a really solid rookie season, right? And there are reports coming out that he was going to catch the ball more, which he did start in the beginning of the season. He did have more targets. They've since gone down, but he was catching the ball more. So, that really starts to bump him up your rankings. He's been injured, which is where I'm cutting him some slack and where I'm keeping him up there because he did have a really good rookie season. He's still been the RB5 on the year. Yeah. He's a good running back. He even missed a game too. I mean, I know without CMC, Chubb missed a few games and Saquon. But it's been looking and where I cut him no slack and where he committed a heinous cuttable offense is he toyed with us.
That was dirty. That fucked over a lot of people. I'm in a league where someone got fucked over with that.
Worst thing ever you could have done. Obviously, I'm joking, but to say that you're not going to be playing and then go out and play. I mean, people probably would have been better off sitting him anyway. He only put up depending on where you are, he only had 49 rushing yards and 25 receiving yards, so no touchdowns.
Touchdown? No, he did.
No, not against the Colts when he said he wasn't playing.
Oh, I was thinking.
No.
Chargers.
No. Speaking of the Chargers, though, Keenan Allen did say, "Go out and play me," and then Keenan Allen did nothing. So, no. I mean, that's where you got.
Love to see it. Right, Frank? I know you're listening there producing, but you love to see Keenan Allen.
Don't do that to him.
Don't you? Oh. Keeps invoking the curse of Dan Arnold. Something to talk about later. But it's tough to. It's tough. It's tough to believe, that he is going to be that top tier talent when we haven't really seen a huge jump this year. He had a great first game, and we haven't seen much out. We've just seen solid average production since. So I'm iffy on him. He might be slowly sliding down my rankings if I don't see anything from him in the next 2 weeks.
I mean, Jacobs is just going to get too many touches here to not be a top 10 running back. Even if you slide him down a few spots, like it's what it is. There's not many backs that get as many touches as he does in the league. So I don't see how you can rank him below any of those guys. So
I mean, someone that I do believe I have to check again, but I'm pretty sure I have Derrick Henry ranked below him currently, and I would slide Henry back up if I don't see a lot from him.
You had Jacobs at 7 and Henry at 10.
Yeah, so maybe move Henry up to 7, Jacobs down to 8, and keep the other two guys there. Willing to move him down. Haven't seen much, but whatever. This is just our personal rankings, what we've seen. Louis, what's your next highlight?
So my next highlight this week was, we kind of touched on a little bit with Herbert earlier. I'll concede Mahomes is the edge on Kyler.
Thank you. That's a famous Clownus episode. Should have been called that.
Yeah. Kyler's second. But so this is excluding the guy who would obviously come to mind when you rank a top 5 QBs is Russell Wilson is still a top 5 dynasty QB. But I'm saying young, so I'm going to exclude him here. But I will say Russell Wilson is in that top 5. You can make a case number 3. But out of the young QBs,
you could make the case for 2. I'm just throwing that out there. But all right.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. I wouldn't agree, but you can definitely make the case for 2. You can make the case. How would you guys rank the top of the rest of the top 5 younger QBs after Mahomes?
I do have another question though. Are we considering Dak Prescott? Like, he's 27. So
Dak and Wentz, I think, just don't make the cut. Like, I'm thinking more like Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, and younger. Would you have Dak in that top 5?
I mean, yeah. I mean, after seeing what,
probably, yeah.
So we to clarify, we're not counting them. We're saying that they're out too. Dak
I think they're just a little bit too low.
Okay, so I think
Kyler let's just put an age on it. It's quarterbacks under 25. Mahomes 25 and under. Mahomes is 25. So there you go. He's 1.
Deshaun 25 too? Deshaun should be 25 then, right?
Deshaun is also 25. Yes.
25. All right, yeah. So I do Kyler, Deshaun is the next, the 2 under Mahomes. Then I have Herbert, Josh Allen, and then I think Lamar. That'd be my next 5 under. I want to put Burrow there, but with the injury and everything, and I just don't trust the Bengals as an organization yet. Typically, I'd say I don't trust the Chargers, but Herbert's shown me more. So I think Burrow would be my fringe guy. Same with Tua. So to reiterate, I had Kyler, Deshaun, Herbert, Allen, Lamar.
I mean, I have all the same guys. I'd have them in a slightly different order. I'm slightly higher on Josh Allen. I'm slightly higher on Tua. But I think overall you pretty much nailed it. I don't think there's much for debate here. When I think the NFL is really going to have a changing of the guard coming up very soon. Brady,
and we have a heavy QB class coming in also.
Yes. So with Brady, Rivers, and Ben, even like Rodgers on the way out, they're all Drew Brees. They're all 36 and up. I think the NFL is really about to see a big changing in the guard at the QB position, and I think it'll be good for the league. Some new faces, some young faces, and just something different.
We ready to move on then? Trending up, trending down?
Yeah. So I'll kick it off. A guy we just touched on, my trending up for the week is Tua. And I just think I really like what I've seen from him in the past few weeks. He threw his first interception this week, but that says something. He's played in, about 6 games and he hadn't thrown an interception. So I think he really takes care of the ball. He's really starting to open up the offense. He had his first 300-yard passing game this week. He had 316 yards on 28 of 48, which is not that great. But the week before, he was 26 of 39 for 296. So I think he's just in a position to succeed. I really trust in Brian Flores. I think the Dolphins are building the right way. They have a ton of picks coming up thanks to Bill O'Brien. And I just expect Tua to continue to develop and show that why there was the saying tank for Tua. For the longest time, this draft was supposed to be the tank for Tua draft. And I know he fell at 5, and I think the Dolphins are really lucked out.
Go ahead, JT.
I think he's been playing well. He definitely has been playing a lot better since he got benched. He's shown you that he can win games. Now, I also do like the prospect of the Dolphins getting more wide receiver help and drafting wide receivers.
I mean,
I have Preston Williams
that they could get Jamar Chase. I mean, they're going to have Houston's pick or in their own pick. I don't know how high. I don't know exactly where it's going to fall.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, this draft class is loaded with wide receivers, and I think one of those first-round picks has to be a wide receiver if you're the Dolphins.
I think what's more likely is they're going to pair him with one of his college teammates, whether that be Jalen Waller or Devontae Smith. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's possible that they pair him with that. You have Preston Williams coming back. You got Gesicki staying. Devontae Parker, I don't think he's a free agent. So you have a solid receiving core. They might sign someone. They might draft a running back is another possibility. Right now, it's Myles Gaskin is our number 1 running back, which is not great. I don't know if I love Travis Etienne's pass blocking or no. So
if I was them, I wouldn't worry about the running back position as much. I think between Gaskin and Breida and even Salvin Ahmed or whatever his name is, they've been pretty productive throughout the season.
They look like a solid, well-rounded team, which if you told us that like a year and a half ago when like people were like, should they even be allowed to play games? Like they're just going to get destroyed. Like that's a lot, credit, a lot of credit to Brian Flores for doing so. I don't really have much more to add.
Dolphins are 8-5.
Probably going to make the playoffs.
There's a good chance the Dolphins make the playoffs after last year being pretty bad.
It's a pretty
our producer Frank is just throwing out Frank's throwing out a lot of good points right now. He's saying that Brian Flores being a disciple here of Bill Belichick, he can never trust his running backs anyway. So just a thought.
What I like about Brian Flores though is like unlike what Matt Patricia did and what Bill O'Brien did, where they tried to like just straight up emulate Bill Belichick and like be the hard ass in the locker room and whatnot. Like they're their own guys. Like it doesn't work when you're trying to be that Patricia Bill O'Brien person when you've never actually won on your own and you're trying to like command a locker room. Like you don't have that respect. Brian Flores was doing so like much better. I really like Brian Flores. He's probably my coach of the year guy. I know there are a few other candidates, but he's the one that I'd throw my vote behind.
He's 100% in the conversation.
Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about on Tua, or do we want to move to Jake's trending down?
I'd move Jake's trending down.
So, my trending down this week is a guy that a lot of people probably also took high in their rookie draft this past offseason. It's Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver out of Alabama, now plays for the Broncos, and he just really hasn't done anything. Obviously, it's probably playing with Drew Lock and Brett Rippon and whoever else is playing quarterback for the Broncos, but he hasn't done much, and it's just obviously I think it's a decent buy low candidate, but right now he's just trending down and just looks. That whole team just looks bad, especially on the offensive side of the football. What do you guys think of him?
I agree. Where it's difficult to say because I do want to buy him low, but I feel like most Jeudy owners actually wouldn't sell him like for whatever price is worth buying him at. It's like
I think this is a prime case of the Joe Mixon paradox. Would you say, Jake?
It is.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that's gonna be one of the shirts. When 3rd and 20 comes out with shirts, I want Joe Mixon paradox.
Joe Mixon paradox.
And Juju effect.
I want a shirt with just JT's hand on the shoulder.
All right, clip that right there. Clip that right there. But back to Jeudy, like his two good games, because he's only really had two good games, have been against the Jets and the Falcons, which objectively are two of the worst defenses.
Does that even count?
Like, you gotta give them to
those
them.
aren't
But,
real
like,
defenses. We can play better defense than those teams.
Well, there are a lot of excuses you could make. Like, he's a rookie who's should have been their number one wide receiver based on talent. So he's probably facing, some of the top corners. His quarterback room has been a mess. They even didn't have a quarterback when we're talking about the New Orleans game. So it's been hard to
Hinton, right? Is that what his name was? Kendall
Hinton. Yep. So it's like difficult to build chemistry for Jeudy because you have got all these guys like going around. But my issue with Jeudy is you need like so many things to go right for him to be good. Right. So you need Courtland Sutton when he comes back. You need Jeudy to still be able to have targets. You need like Courtland Sutton to take away some coverage and Jeudy for him to still have targets.
And for that to happen in the first place, you need Courtland Sutton to come back healthy. After he tore everything in his knee. So like that's another thing. Like
you need Tim Patrick to not get as many targets. He's the red zone guy, apparently. Tim Patrick. You've got if Drew Lock is the quarterback, you not only have to worry about Noah Fant in the red zone, you also have to worry about Albert O, who was his college teammate, who saw a lot of red zone targets when he was healthy. Then Drew Lock is a whole nother conversation in its own. Is Drew Lock good? We don't think so. He hasn't really shown much recently. He had a 4-touchdown game. And I still feel like he didn't play that well. Like it was just
Drew Lock does have the most swag / moxie in the league. You can't deny that.
I can and I am. It took a 4-touchdown game.
Ever seen.
It took a 4-touchdown game from Drew Lock to be fantasy relevant. Like, look, that's not good. Now, not only just fantasy relevant, but actual NFL, like, no one thinks Drew Lock's really that great. Like, I don't think he's going to be the starter.
Do the Broncos spend a high pick on a quarterback is my question to you.
Another year? Like, another John Elway?
They're going to give him one more year.
Yeah. Like,
they're going to give him
so
one
at that
more
point, it's a big question for Jeudy, whether he produces. I mean, because at that point, it's all based on whether Drew Lock turns the corner or not. That's the biggest question.
I think they give Drew Lock one more year.
What did you say, Lounis?
I was just saying I think they're going to give Drew Lock one more year, to Jake's thing earlier. And this was a quick stat. Shout out, JT mentioned him, Ryan McDowell. He's pretty awesome with Dynasty stats. Jerry Jeudy has finished inside the top 30 fantasy football wide receivers one time all season. He's been wide receiver 40 or worse 9 times. And over the past month, he's wide receiver 102.
There you go. He's done nothing. Zip, zilch, zero.
So the issue, like, I think, Jake, you were starting to allude to it, too, is his situation's not great. And you have to bank on it getting better because guess what? Judy's a first-round pick. So they're probably going to take the 5th-year option on him. So that's a lot of years for Jerry Jeudy to be on Denver and waiting for Denver to be good. I would want to roll the dice on another wide receiver in the first round. That's why I don't think I'd even give up my first for Jerry Jeudy at this point.
I was about to say, are either of you giving up a late first for Jeudy?
No, but that's my point. If you're an owner that did draft Jeudy, let's say around pick 7 or 8 or even higher in your rookie draft, if you could trade him for the same pick this year and pick up a Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, maybe Jamar Chase falls because a bunch of quarterbacks went ahead in the Superflex league. Travis Etienne went ahead. So if you can get someone like that for just trading Jerry Jeudy and basically trading your pick from last year to a pick this year, I think it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I would do it too.
I like Judy's talent. Good route runner.
Oh, there's no doubt in Judy's talent. It's just the problem of his situation and whether or not he'll be stuck there for too long before they actually get good.
It is interesting. This brings up a whole point of Dynasty, right? you always talk about, you want to draft talent over situation, because when you draft situation over talent, that's how you end up with like a Keyshawn Vaughn in late first rounds when he was getting all that hype. It does seem like it's more and more that wide receivers are starting to become the situational guys and not the running backs. Because you think about like James Robinson, that's first off undrafted free agent on arguably, I don't know, second worst team in the NFL. So
definitely the second worst team.
They're going to have to pass it a lot if they're behind, which they do. They're probably going to stack the box because the quarterback's not great, which they do. And you know what's still happening? James Robinson's producing.
Yeah, another guy that was barely even a running back in college was Antonio Gibson, and he's been one of the biggest surprises of the year. And I think we all had him in our top 15 last week. So I just think talent at the running back position really shines through. Well, at the wide receiver position, you really need a quarterback that can actually get you the ball.
Yeah.
Imagine Allen Robinson with someone that could like actually get the ball to him. Like
he'd probably have like 1,800 yards.
Now, to play devil's advocate, though, there is 2 wide receiver ones on Minnesota with Kirk Cousins as the quarterback. Now, I like Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I like Kirk Cousins, but what Lounis just mentioned, they're run first team, and he's not a top 12 dynasty quarterback. Like he's able to produce 2 wide receiver ones who, I mean, they both are very talented.
Okay, yes, but at least Kirk Cousins is an established NFL quarterback. He's gotten his big contract twice now, and he's, proven that he can win games. Obviously, he hasn't done a whole lot in the playoffs yet, but he's proven that he is a quality NFL starting quarterback, and I don't think anyone can really take that away from him.
That's his prime time. Not so much, but
I want to see really quick. I'm pulling up Hamler's season numbers compared to Jeudy's.
It's comparable. I mean, most of Hamler's stats came from the last game.
Hamler's at 74. Hamler's at 74. Jeudy's at 95.5.
Yeah, well, I mean,
not
Tim
a huge.
Patrick is the number 1 wide receiver out of all of them currently. Like, it doesn't look great right now for Jerry Jeudy. I do believe that he's going to end up being a very good player, but it's just at this point in time, I'm not loving what's going on in Denver.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point. I want to emphasize, like, I'm sure you two both agree, Judy's going to be a good receiver. I think we're just talking about right now, like, the expectations, like, that he had coming into the league. Because coming into the league, he was, even though some people said CD higher, I think people viewed Jeudy as the most pro-ready right away. Heading into this draft with his route running, his hands, his experience at Bama. I think he was kind of viewed as the most pro-ready wide receiver. So we'll see. And we did have our producer, Frank, say he would give the late first for Jeudy.
I'm sure many would. I mean, it might be an unpopular opinion of us to say that we wouldn't trade Jeudy for a late first. But with a quarterback-heavy draft class like this, like potentially elite wide receivers are going to fall down a little bit. And, Kyle Pitts might get drafted up there too. You're probably getting 3 wide running backs drafted in the first right now. Depending on where they get drafted in the actual NFL, I do think 3 probably get drafted in the first. So there are, 4 or so wide receivers that you could roll the dice on. I think, probably will end up at least keeping the same kind of value that Jeudy currently has. Now, this is I don't know if it's historic, but it's an unprecedented year where so many of the rookies have hit. Basically, all the rookie running backs have hit, including undrafted free agent James Robinson. Now, a lot of the wide receivers hit. T. Higgins, CD Lamb's looking good. Justin Jefferson's looking amazing. Someone who's now my trending up. Do you guys like that transition? I like that transition. My trending up is Brandon Aiyuk.
All right, pat yourself on the back again. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So What a great transition by me. Brandon Aiyuk. Deebo Samuel's been out. Brandon Aiyuk's been going off. Even with Deebo Samuel on the team, it looked like Brandon Aiyuk was the leading receiver as far as targets. I mean, I know Deebo had that one good week where I think it was with Brandon Aiyuk out with COVID or whatever he had. No, was that when he was sick? I think that might. No, he went on COVID twice, right? I think he was on COVID a second time, COVID list. But these past 4 games he's played in, he's seen the least amount of targets was 9 against Buffalo, where he still got 95 yards and a touchdown. But he's seen 10, 14, 9, 16 targets. He's had close to 100 yards in all the games. He's currently the wide receiver 30 on the year, which is like not great. But then you think about he missed 2 games. Missed 2 games due to COVID because he missed the Green Bay game too. So you got to factor that in. And you also have to factor out Nick Mullins has been throwing the ball to him a few times. Jimmy Garoppolo has been throwing him most times. Frank just chimed in. He's the most targeted wide receiver rookie per game. I think he's someone that's trending up, and he's not getting the same kind of hype that I guarantee if you ask 10 people, 9 out of 10 would say they'd rather have CeeDee Lamb over Brandon Aiyuk. I probably still would be one of those 9 people, but I think it's a lot closer than people think. I mean, I don't know. Especially if you get another quarterback in San Fran, I don't hate Jimmy G, but there are definitely better quarterbacks that will throw the ball a lot.
Really, Stafford in San Francisco?
Possible. We're just trying to put Stafford anywhere and make them all relevant.
Yeah, I just want to throw Stafford in any good offense because it'll be fun.
Such a shitty situation. JT, I think you nailed it with he doesn't get enough hype as he should. For like as much as everyone loves Justin Jefferson, and we should, by the way, he's amazing. He's averaging only 1 point less per game in half PPR. Brandon Aiyuk to finish your stats because you said he's wide receiver 30 on the season, but he missed some time. He's wide receiver 15 in fantasy points per game and half PPR with 13.3, ahead of guys like Robert Woods, Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Claypool, and all those guys are extremely good receivers. But Brandon Aiyuk hasn't been getting a lot of attention. Now, as much love as we're giving Aiyuk, we should also say Kittle has been out for most of this year. And when Kittle comes back, he's the number 1 receiver on that team. Well, he's a tight end, but you know what I mean, number 1 receiving threat. But I think Aiyuk has definitely proved himself to be, and Debo's a good receiver, but better than Deebo. And I don't think he gets talked about enough. I think JT nailed it. He hasn't gotten as much media hype as someone like a CD or Jefferson or Claypool, but he's been balling out in the games he's played.
Yeah, and I think part of it is playing on San Fran, and they're not a great team right now because of all the injuries. So, I mean, I know Dallas isn't a great team, but they're Dallas. They're always going to get that media attention. The Steelers have been looking great, and Claypool's looking great. We'll talk about him in a second, actually. Now, I do think when Kittle comes back, I know Kittle will be getting a lot of targets, but I think Aiyuk will rival him for amount of targets per game. And with the Shanahan offense, it's kind of hard to predict. I know he does like running the running backs into the ground kind of thing. He's been doing all this with a backup quarterback. Terry McLaurin and Amari Cooper, who you mentioned, also have had backup quarterbacks, but the people ahead of them have elite quarterbacks other than Allen Robinson and Justin Jefferson and Thielen. They just haven't established one. But he's doing it with not a great situation. He's making the most of it. I really like Aiyuk, and he's been moving up my rankings a lot recently.
Yeah. The one thing I think about Aiyuk is that I think it has a lot to do with Deebo Samuel not playing. And I've been down on Deebo Samuel for pretty much the whole year just because I stay away from all injury guys. Anyone that has an injury, like a history of injuries that Deebo has, is not good. No matter how old he is, it's just not something you want to stay away from. The best type of player is an available one because he does no good sitting on your IR spot all season. It really doesn't help you get anywhere. If you could trade Deebo Samuel to someone that's pretty high on him still, and I'm sure there's plenty of owners that will be because he's a talented wide receiver, and I'm not taking that away from him. But I just think his injury history is too long to. 2 seconds in this draft, this kind of draft, 2 seconds. I think you get.
You want
I
two
think
seconds,
yeah,
Debo?
I mean, I think you could possibly get a late first, depending on how high the owner is on him. Probably not. So I'd say 2 seconds is a fair deal. But I think in this draft, if you can get 2 seconds, you can end up with a lot of good players. I think quarterbacks are going to dominate the first round of especially super flex drafts, and then running backs as well with Travis Etienne and Chuba Hubbard and all those guys coming.
That was
I can't. I don't know how to say his name. It's fine.
The table's turned.
but
Real quick before we get going to T, and now that I asked price for Debo, what do you guys have price for Aiyuk? I think Aiyuk is definitely in the first round value price.
Yeah, he was probably in your rookie draft. He was probably drafted early to mid second round in your rookie draft. Brandon Aiyuk was, and he's only played well. Like he's shown more than probably what you expected from him. So that bumps it up automatically for me. I'd probably give somewhere. This is a tough year because of like what's going on with quarterbacks and stuff. But I'd be willing to give up.
I'd want like a pick like
I'd give up
108 or like 107.
I was gonna say 106 is why
I don't think you would get that for him. I don't think you would get that for him though.
You mean? You don't think you'd be able to get 106 for him?
No.
It's close. I definitely would if I had like pick 110.
You got to be thinking about who's going to be picked at 106 this year, JT.
It probably is going to be Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase.
It could be Devontae Smith. It could be Zach Wilson as a quarterback. So I don't think you can get 106. I would for
what's the most you're giving up for him, Jake? You can say like 10 something. You can say like 109. You could say like 110.
I mean, listen. It obviously depends on how your draft is going to fall and how you know your league and how your league is going to draft more than anybody else. But I would tend to say I wouldn't give up anything more than like 111, 112 in there.
I don't think if you're an Aiyuk owner, you're selling for that price. I'd be willing to give up 1-2 in like a mid-second though. 110, sorry, 110 in a mid-second. Is a price that I'd be willing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying that's like the highest pick I'd give up. I'd give up if you wanted to say you throw in another pick, the late second round. Yeah, sure, fine, why not? I throw those picks in just to get the guy I want, but I wouldn't give up 107, 106 like you guys were talking about. No chance.
And our producer Frank, who by the way you guys should all check out his videos on the 3rd and 20 YouTube channel and their 3rd and 20 podcast. His input, and he's as into fantasy as us three, if not more. His input was 108 he would give up for Brandon Aiyuk.
No way. Get out of here.
I think that's a fair number.
Get out of here.
I think I do. The issue is though, you're taking like.
The thing is,
you're looking a lot at last year.
No, in a vacuum, I would do 108 for Aiyuk. It's just the fact that I know who's going to be taking at 108 this year, and I think that player is more valuable because I think last year was a bad draft class, and I think we can all. I mean, it wasn't bad.
Last year was bad. I think 2 years ago was kind of but I thought last year was pretty good.
2 years ago was bad. I think this year is better than last year, is what I mean, and that's therefore I wouldn't give up as much.
I don't know if this year is better than last year, just because I think what
the QBs
everyone hit from this year, like the only ones that didn't hit, and some are starting to now. Like Cam Akers didn't hit at first, but he's trying to hit now. Jeudy hasn't hit. Rager hasn't really hit yet. Ruggs hasn't hit. They're all wide receivers though, so they might still end up hitting. But other than that, you got guys in the second that have been hitting, like T. Higgins and Brandon Aiyuk. Even Pittman has been showing stuff. Like Claypool, who's probably in the third, who I'm about to talk about. I just think like it's getting tough with like. Do you think Waddle will end up outproducing Brandon Aiyuk? Like with what you've seen from Brandon Aiyuk? Because realistically, let's say like Chase has been picked, and let's say you really want a receiver, right? And Chase has been picked at 106, and Devontae Smith has been picked at 107. So now you're sitting there at 108, and you're looking at Waddle versus Aiyuk. Are you gonna take the gamble on Waddle?
I think you're missing a lot of. There's Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's Rashad Bateman. There's so many receivers in this class, and I think it's really going to be dependent on where these guys land. Obviously, we say draft, talent over situation, but obviously there's definitely some play here. Obviously, where they end up landing is a factor you have to take into consideration. And I think there's so many talented wide receivers that trading 107 for Brandon Aiyuk is just a lot, in my opinion. When you could, if you had let's say you had pick 111, you might end up with an Amon-Ra St. Brown or someone along those lines who could just be just as good depending on where he lands.
Yeah.
By the way, sorry, real quick. I want to preface, we said it in the previous episode, but in case you missed that one, all these draft rankings we're doing, reminder, are super flex drafts. Obviously, if it was standard, their value would be higher as a wide receiver, but all the rankings we're doing right now, we're saying like 108 or whatever. This is for a super flex rookie draft where quarterbacks will go at the top and take up some of those top spots. I just wanted to remind.
Just play super flex because it's better.
Definitely. All right, we spent a lot of time on Brandon Aiyuk, but that's a conversation a lot of people have about a lot of different receivers, especially with these rookies. Like, I'm sure T. Higgins is probably in a similar, zone, like similar value range. People probably are debating, like, would I be willing to give up that 108 or whatnot for T. Higgins? Interesting things to think about. It's something that a lot of dynasty owners are going to have to gamble on, and it could end up, really making or breaking what your dynasty team will be in the future. Now, another rookie who Lounis put in his top 15 when we were doing the dynasty rankings, he's my trending down. Believe it or not, we are still on the trending down segment, trending up, trending down. Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool, the past 3 games, has been pedestrian because he hasn't really caught a touchdown. But these past 2 games, and why he's on my trending down, I know trending down is kind of reactionary for a dynasty league, but with Deontay Johnson dropping all the balls and getting benched in the most recent game, you expect Chase Claypool to then step up and be that guy, but they turn to James Washington. I get that they're different receivers, and Chase Claypool is more of that, vertical threat kind of guy. He's the guy that'll go up and get it, and that's not really James Washington's play style. But for a few reasons, I feel like I want to say Chase Claypool is trending down because we haven't seen Ben Roethlisberger play really well in the most recent games. And we haven't seen a lot of targets to Chase Claypool. Like, he's someone that I don't think I'd be comfortable putting in my top 15 dynasty wide receiver rankings. But,
I'm laughing at the thought of how much Frank wants to come and just like at you right now.
I mean, go ahead, but like my things are like,
a resident Steeler fan, so
yeah, but like, yes, Juju's leaving, so you're gonna have that. But Ben Roethlisberger is getting older. Like, there's no guarantee Ben Roethlisberger will be back, next year, 2 years from now. You don't know who that replacement quarterback's going to be, if they're going to be willing to throw the ball. It takes a lot of confidence and stuff to be a quarterback to just air it out. Like, we see a lot of quarterbacks like Teddy Bridgewater and a few others of that kind of caliber that just, they don't love chucking it deep. So I don't know. It's something I'd be concerned about. I mean, Juju is probably leaving. You're going to have more targets just naturally, but I don't know. He's not in my top 15 dynasty wide receivers. He's probably not in my top 20. I don't know if he's in my top 25. About 25 is probably where I'd rank him, which is a move down from where it's been, and that's why he's my trending down. What are your guys' thoughts?
I'm not gonna.
Not a whole lot. Just I agree that there's a lot of question marks in Pittsburgh, just with Juju's free agency coming up, Big Ben's age. So there's a bunch of things that are up in the air in Pittsburgh, and I think it could really affect him one way or the other. I think Juju leaving might actually hurt him, just like Antonio Brown leaving hurt Juju. So it could go either way. I still think he's a very talented wide receiver, no doubt. He's shown that. But I don't have him moving down that far. I still have him as a very good wide receiver, probably, in that 18 range-ish. But Lounis, what do you think?
Maybe I kind of overshot on the top 15, but I still have him in the top 20. Like Claypool's been really, really good this year. Buffalo's a tough defense. No one on the Steelers offense was really playing well that game. They couldn't really get anything going. Deontay was off. I guess Juju kind of had an all right game in James Washington, but again, I'm not gonna overthink that one game. And I think when Deontay got benched, they may have moved Tre'Davious White onto Claypool because Juju's in the slot. So I'd have to rewatch that, but I'm sure he went up against him on a decent amount of plays. I still like Claypool a lot. I think Deontay Johnson also is kind of interesting because Deontay Johnson's kind of confusing because he's so good, but he just drops so often, which is like a huge problem as a receiver. But he's also insanely good at route running and getting open and everything. So he's a whole different discussion. But with Claypool, I'm not going to lose too much confidence in him yet. I think next year he really plays. And again, a lot of assumptions I'm making is that the Steelers don't re-sign Juju because of their cap situation and already how many good receivers they have. I think next year we really see Claypool take off as good as he's been his rookie year.
Let's do our classic, kind of value check here. I'm going to throw some names at you real quick. Just 1-for-1 deal. Don't worry about situation. Just value for value. Who would you rather have, right? Chase Claypool or DJ Moore?
Claypool.
DJ Moore.
All right, so we're split on that. I picked DJ Moore. Claypool or Kenny Golladay?
Kenny G.
That's tough. I'm going Golladay. The injury kind of scared me this year, but I also have seen a lot of stuff saying he's just not returning because he hasn't gotten paid and he'd rather just be healthy for next season. So assuming Kenny G is healthy, I think I'm taking Kenny G, but it's really close between them two.
Also depends where he signs in free agency, but
where he lands up. Yeah, Kenny G's value is going to be huge on free agency.
Claypool or Amari Cooper?
Claypool.
You say it, Jake?
Claypool.
Oh, both have Claypool over Amari Cooper. Interesting. All right, last one. Claypool or Mike Evans?
Claypool.
Yeah, I'm going to take Claypool.
All right. So based on my, quick little study, it seems like you would have him around wide receiver 18, 19 kind of range. I'm probably a little lower, like wide receiver 23. Probably where I'd rank him. Fair enough. All right. That's all I want to see really about Claypool. Let's move on to your trending up, trending down, Lounis.
So my trending up, he's not as known, but I think he's an interesting player who some teams may have just had him storing on the taxi squad. Some teams may have picked him up. I have no idea what the Raiders did with him last offseason. They drafted him, played him at his wrong position, then traded him away right away. I don't know. But it's Lynn Bowden. I hope I'm saying that name right. He's a kind of like a wide receiver and running back in Miami, but he's mostly being used at wide receiver, which I think is his more natural and better position. But last week it's been nothing
quarterback
crazy.
at Kentucky.
Yeah, he did play some quarterback in Kentucky. It's been nothing like crazy. Like he put up 7.2 2 weeks ago and then 12 last week. But I just found it interesting that he's starting to get some chances, and in the chances he's looked all right. Like last week against Kansas City, he had 9 targets for 7 catches and 82 yards. And the week before, he had 5 total touches for 52 yards. I think he's someone who can be interesting in Miami because it looked like I was watching a lot of his plays from last weekend against Kansas City. Him and Tua were on the same page with a ton of their routes, like Tua anticipating him perfectly. And I think he's going to ultimately be their slot receiver of the future. And I know they have Devontae on the outside. They could bring in another outside receiver. But I thought he looked pretty good last week, and he's someone I'm not gonna make proclamations being like, oh, everyone buy him, like he's gonna be selling. I'm just saying he's someone I'm gonna be watching these last couple weeks of the regular season now. He's caught my eye.
I think he's someone that is just going to be, due to circumstance, he'll be relevant. But I think when Preston Williams comes back, when you have Devontae Parker and Gesicki and all of them healthy, you got to assume they probably are bringing in another offensive talent that I think, regardless of who it is, I think they will outperform Lynn Bowden. Also, I mean, I might be slandering the guy, but I think he's had off-the-field issues too, which, that's always a concern. A player who has gotten in trouble before in college coming out. So I don't know. I don't think he'll ever amount to much, in my opinion. How about you, Jake?
I liked him coming out of college. I thought he was a dynamic player. Obviously, like I said, he played some quarterback, he played some running back, he played some wide receiver. Very dynamic, just one of the best playmakers on that whole team for Kentucky. The Raiders drafted him in the 3rd round and then immediately traded him to Miami for him in the 6th for Miami's 4th. So clearly something happened when they brought him into camp. I don't know what, if they just gave up on him, if they didn't have space for him, and just wanted to recoup.
There was an arrest that happened in June where it was like grandma's house got raided because there was like guns at the house. Then they said it wasn't his guns and he was just a guest, but it was a weird story happened.
I don't know what the deal was with there, but he ended up in Miami. Miami did give up a 4th round pick for him, which is, pretty decent draft capital for a guy. Not great, but not horrible. I don't know. I think they're going to keep him around just to be, I think at worst he ends up being some special teams player for them. If a kick returner, punt returner, or some kind of thing for him. Fantasy wise, I wouldn't trust it too much just because I think they're going to end up, like we said, taking a skill position player very highly, whether that be a running back, a wide receiver, maybe even tight end and Kyle Pitts, run 2 tight ends. Who knows? I wouldn't put too much fantasy stock in him though.
Yeah. Who's your trending down, Lounis?
So my trending down for this week is
the slander.
Daniel Jones.
The slander.
I'm not trying to attack him. Okay. Not trying
the
to
dude
attack
was
him.
Playing with one fucking leg. That was on the coach. That's the coach's fault. Why are you putting him out there with one fucking leg when this man's half of his game is being able to move around? No fucking sense. The slander that this
looks more like a big defense of Daniel Jones than it is Lounis trending down for Daniel Jones.
the slander that this is. He had a bad game. We got it, Lounis. He was playing on one leg. What do you want from the guy?
Alex Smith didn't have a leg. Pretty bad than Daniel Jones.
I'm just saying this with Daniel Jones. If the Giants don't make the playoffs, Jake, so they'll probably have, if they don't make the playoffs, they'll probably have a top 12 pick.
Yeah.
Somewhere there.
They'll probably
do you think they draft a quarterback?
No.
Because I think there's a decent chance they draft a quarterback.
I don't. Who are they taking?
There's going to be Zach Wilson there. It's going to be Trey Lance.
I don't know about that. I think
we don't know, but
I think Trask will be there. I don't know about the other 2 guys.
As a Giants fan, would you be upset if one of those quarterbacks got picked?
Well, let's be real. As a Trey Lance pod, I would love Trey Lance. Let's be real. Just because I think he's the truth. But overall, I don't think they need a quarterback. I think there's other holes on this team that need to be addressed more than Daniel Jones because he's actually shown flashes. And as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, which he's done since the Giants have started to turn this around a little bit, I think they'll be okay. Obviously, I think there's a chance they take a quarterback, but I think there's bigger holes.
I'm out on Daniel Jones at this point. I'm not going out and I'm buying him. I'm going to try and sell him for what I can.
Fantasy. I'm just talking NFL.
JT, you think they draft someone?
No, I don't think
if they don't win the division, by the way. This is if they don't win the division.
Even if they don't, I don't think they do. But I could see him being one of the ones to make a move for a different quarterback. Even if they went out and got Sam Darnold.
Matt Stafford.
Even if they went out and got one.
I'm just saying Stafford to everyone.
We're going to start narratives for Stafford to every team.
You heard it.
They went out and got one of those quarterbacks. He'd be probably the second best quarterback in the division. Sorry, Jalen Hurts / Carson Wentz, but like you go out and you get like a Sam Darnold or a Matt Stafford.
Speaking of one legs, Dak Prescott will have one leg.
I'm assuming Dak signs back. Like I just think if you go out and you get another one, like he'll probably be the second quarterback in the division, and you could make the playoffs off that. Now that is interesting though. Imagine this: the Cowboys go out. I mean, no, the Giants go out and they get Dak Prescott from the Cowboys.
Yo, hold up. I didn't even think of this.
Jason Garrett recruiting.
Jason Garrett and Dak back together. We saw how well that worked the first time.
Now saying that out loud. Never mind. Scratch it. Never mind. Let's move on.
It's interesting.
Let's just go to the next segment. I forgot. Jason Garrett.
Let's move on.
New segment. So we're getting to. Oh, I got it. We're getting to the end of the year, right? A lot of us, the trade deadline, if you have a trade deadline in your dynasty league, has already passed. You're just sitting around and just waiting for the playoffs to end. It's a less interesting time if you're not in the playoffs. This leads us to the sleepers / players to watch for next year. Now, these people aren't necessarily on your waiver wires. Like I know our waiver wire is basically barren. Like there's not a lot going on there. Some might be, but these are guys who are basically worth nothing other than a few who are only worth a little bit. They're guys worth next to nothing who we're looking out for, whether it be they have a solid situation right now and can make the most of it. They might have a good situation in the future, in the upcoming year, something to look out for. Players that you might want to just, take a flyer on and could see a solid increase in value. So I think we should just do it one player each, and then we'll go, kind of like a snake draft kind of thing where we each go through players. So Jake, who's your first player that you got player to watch for next year?
Darnell Mooney, wide receiver on the Bears. I think he's really established himself as the wide receiver 2 in Chicago right now behind Allen Robinson. With Allen Robinson's upcoming free agency, there's been rumors of him leaving. I think there's a good chance that he could be the wide receiver 1 in Chicago next year. Obviously, that doesn't say much with Mitch at the quarterback position, but he has been playing better since taking back the starting job. I don't think he's looked that bad. He's actually put up a few, 3 touchdown games in the past 3 weeks. So I think Darnell Mooney is someone to keep an eye on. I think he's a very talented receiver, and he's just my guy to look out for.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would have had him as one of mine had you not. I think you nailed it. His route running's been awesome this year. I've seen so many plays where he's gotten open deep, and the quarterback just hasn't been able to hit him or find him. And Allen Robinson, like you said, could leave this free agency, and it could be Mooney being the number 1 receiver next year. He's if the owner doesn't recognize how good he is, he's someone I would try to buy this offseason. But I'm sure if the owner's been paying attention, they kind of know about what his potential upside could be, because I think he's going to be really good next year.
The other question about him is not about him, but about the Bears in general. Does that mean we're out on Anthony Miller? Like, are we just done with Anthony Miller?
Sadly,
out.
This was the last hope I had for him this year. I took him in a few redraft leagues that I had this year, and he was dropped by like week 3. So I'm out on Anthony Miller. I hate to say it.
I think I am too at this point. All right. So then my guy, who I will start with, is another wide receiver in the NFC North. He's someone that's owned on the sleeper platform, 58% of leagues. So you might be able to find him on your wire. If not, he's one of those fringe guys. Quintez Cephas, who plays for the Detroit Lions. Similar to Jake with what he was saying about Allen Robinson, it seems like Kenny Golladay might be on his way out the door. Lounis talked about him earlier, saying that there are rumors that he might not be playing. He might not be playing just because he's not getting paid, which I'm willing to buy into. Now, in the first game without Kenny Golladay in the rookie year, Cephas had 10 targets, only caught 3 of them, but rookie. He's been seeing about 50% of snaps on the offensive side of the ball. No guarantee. Danny Amendola, I think, is on his last year of a contract too. That just leaves Marvin Jones, who I don't even know if his contract might be expiring as well. What I'm trying to say, though, is there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Quintez Cephas to make a name for himself. He had kind of an interesting story at Wisconsin with the whole allegation that proved to not be true, which caused him to fall down draft rankings because of he missed playing time. He doesn't really create much separation, but he is very good at catching the ball in tight situations, tight windows. What's his face? Okuda, I believe, played against him and said he was the toughest wide receiver he faced in college. And I think didn't he play T. Higgins, something like that.
Okuda played in the Big Ten, so he played against a whole bunch of good wide receivers.
Yeah. So Frank chimed in with Marvin Jones is an unrestricted free agent after the season. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Cephas to play well. So he's a flyer I'd be willing to go and get. He got 3 solid weeks of matchups too. If he actually does end up seeing a lot more playing time, he's someone that you should definitely keep your eye on. Starting with right now at the end of the season, he might do something. He caught a touchdown 2 weeks ago against Chicago. Who's your first guy, Lounis?
My first guy is James Washington. I've been repeating this point all the time. He's going to be in that top 3 receiver rotation in Pittsburgh next year if Juju does leave. And I think Pittsburgh has shown they can keep 3 wide receivers fantasy relevant. And I think he's really talented. I just think he's been stuck behind good receivers. He's on a little bit of a hot stretch right now. Past 2 weeks, he's had 15 and then 10.5. Last week against Buffalo, he had 3 catches for 29 yards and a touchdown. The week before, he had 2 for 80 and a touchdown. He's still only, it feels like he's been in the NFL for a while, but he's still only 24 years old. He's still really young. And he's someone who I think will have a really good season next year if Juju does go get a big contract somewhere else. And we've seen a little bit of inconsistency here and there between Deontay and Claypool. They're both still extremely young, also 22 years old, 23, 21. So I like James Washington for next year. I'm also assuming that Big Ben is playing next year. If he's not there next year, I don't know if they'll be able to support 3, but if he is, I like James Washington for next season.
Do you think a new quarterback could help him, though?
Depends who it is.
Works with Big Ben. I mean, when you look at, I can't come up with it in my mind right now, but remembering Big Ben's throwing chart, it's weird where he kind of just neglects certain parts of the field. And I feel like that's a lot of where James Washington likes to operate, is where Big Ben's neglecting. So do you think a new quarterback could, feed James Washington more targets? Because in my opinion, I think a new quarterback might be helpful for James Washington, while it could be hurtful for Chase Claypool.
It's hard to tell until I see who it is. Is it going to be a rookie? Is it going to be someone that they bring in, maybe like a Darnold or someone?
Let me see the Jameis Winston Steelers.
Jameis Winston Steelers. But it's hard to tell. I definitely think that's a possibility, though, depending on who the backup is. I think it's a possibility. Because also Ben seems to favor those slot guys. So it's hard to tell now, but I definitely think next year he does have a good season and is going to be a every week playable flex.
All right, Jake, who's your next guy?
My next guy is Irv Smith, tight end on Minnesota. Obviously, people had some high hopes for him coming into the year. He was a high pick in the NFL draft, 2nd-year tight end. Kyle Rudolph's still there, but he's getting older, aging out. But this year he's been really disappointing. He hasn't had a whole lot of good games. He's only been on the field probably about 50% of the snaps. But moving forward, Kyle Rudolph is out this week, and I think this is Irv Smith's coming back off his injury. He's missed a lot of games this year. I think this is the first chance he's going to have to really show us what he has moving forward. And I think you got to remember, he's only 22 years old. He was the youngest player in the league last year as a rookie. And tight end is one of these positions that really takes a lot of time to develop, especially for younger guys, because they have to, bulk up and be able to pass block as well. And he's just a guy right now that's pretty much a strictly receiving tight end, and that's why he's only on the field not as much as Kyle Rudolph, who's a bigger guy, more veteran and experienced in pass blocking and things like that. So I would look to Irv Smith, and it's just a guy that you can buy for pretty much next to nothing at this point, probably a third-round pick at most. And I think he has some upside, especially in the tight end position where there's not a whole lot going on.
Yeah, I agree basically with everything you said. He was the youngest. Hasn't produced yet, but it does take a long time for tight end. Well, hasn't produced on a weekly basis yet. Takes a long time for tight ends to produce. I agree. He's definitely someone I'd be willing to take a flyer on. All right. Moving on to the next guy. This is interesting because I have 3 different guys as my one guy. And that's the young Chargers wide receivers. And why I'm saying that is Mike Williams is a potential free agent. They might not sign him this year. But even if the Chargers do not sign Mike Williams, I think a third wide receiver. What's that?
Hunter Henry's a free
Hunter Henry's a free agent as well.
agent too.
Yeah.
Hunter Henry, their tight end.
I don't know if they'll let him go. I doubt it.
Even if they don't let either of them go, I think with this offense, that third wide receiver is still going to be fantasy relevant. As a flex, obviously, probably as like the boomer bust kind of guy that you could throw in. The question is, which guy is it going to be? That's the issue. Because you've got Jalen Guyton, you've got KJ Hill, and you've got Tyron Johnson all vying for those targets. They all played well, actually, against the Raiders. Now, to be fair, it's the Raiders, and it's kind of hard not to play well against them. But Guyton was seeing a lot of targets. He had a clutch pass interference penalty called for him at the end of the game. Johnson caught a touchdown. KJ Hill looked okay. But if one of them can, sort of like rise to the top and be that guy who's seeing the most targets, I think they will be fantasy relevant. And that's someone I'm willing to take a risk on.
That's fair. I agree with you. I think, Jake, real quick. I think Herbert's good enough to support that third receiver. Especially the fact that Herbert loves to go deep a lot. And all 3 of those guys are deep threats versus Keenan Allen isn't exactly a deep threat. Mike Williams can be. Sometimes it's kind of inconsistent with him. And I do think between Mike Williams and Hunter Henry, one of them won't be. I think they bring back just one of them because they do have those other receivers look good. Like Keenan Allen didn't really play a whole ton yesterday. And Herbert was just going off with just those guys, just chucking bombs to them as he has all season. So,
right, Frank, how much did Keenan Allen play?
Jake's just rubbing it in there.
Frank's just sitting here in silence and just
talking trash. For the record, so everyone knows, all the listeners, we probably don't care about our own fantasy teams, right? But Jake's playing Frank in the semifinals in our league. And Jake's talking a lot of trash just one game in. Obviously, Keenan Allen did not have a great game against the Raiders after saying to start him, which is terrible act, terrible, cuttable offense, if you ask me. But it's one game in, and we're already talking all this trash, Jake. You've seen what Frank's team can do. I know Jake's team's favored kind of heavily against Frank, but
okay, listen, I don't read into favorites of anything. I know Frank's team is good. I thought he was going to get Kittle back this week, but he didn't, which thank God. But I'm still scared of Frank's team, especially Tyreek Hill and all those guys on his team, which can just put up a 50 burger on me at any point, which he did. I played Frank for the week that Tyreek Hill had a 50 burger last time, so we'll see.
Frank
I just like to talk.
Yeah,
he did, and he beat me in the semifinals last year. So I just want to talk smack because it's fun, and I can because it was, lucky.
Sounds like Frank has your number, and Frank's team name is Team Lounis. And speaking of Lounis, who's your guy to look out for?
The real Team Lounis. So my next guy is Paris Campbell. I don't know if you guys remember at the start of the year, but at the start of the year, Paris Campbell started to have a bit of a breakout. I'm bringing up his stats from the first couple of games of the season, but we see that T.Y. Hilton is a free agent this offseason. What is it? and we don't know if they're going to re-sign him. Obviously, he's been playing a lot better recently. Literally, the past 3 weeks has easily outscored all the weeks before that. And I could see him filling in and taking over that T.Y. Hilton role. His stats in the games he played earlier this year, and again, he's still only 23 years old. He's insanely young. He only played one game actually earlier this year, but it was 9 targets for 6 catches and 71 yards, and he was apparently, according to every Colts reporter, going off all training camp. So assuming he can recover fully healthy, I think he's a buy low heading into next season. And I wanted to ask you guys, what would you pay or sell for Paris Campbell?
I'm worried about Paris Campbell just from the aspect of 2 straight years where he's now had injury-riddled seasons. Both of them came to an end due to injuries. He did have the one solid game, but that was before Pittman emerged. And, Phillip Rivers does like to throw those short kind of passes.
It was also the only game he was fully healthy, though.
There's no guarantee, though, that Phillip Rivers will be there next year. So who knows what's going on with Phillip Rivers and the Colts quarterback situation. So what I'd give up for him, I wouldn't give up much. I feel like a 3rd rounder, maybe. Which I don't think people would sell. I don't know if you'd sell Campbell at a 3rd, though.
I would give a later half second.
Again, I think this is a very deep draft class, and I think you might be able to get a better player with that doesn't have an injury history the size of an encyclopedia. So,
oh, strong words from Jake on Paris Campbell.
just speak
Campbell's still on or something. Jeez.
I only speak me sure, so it's fine.
Right. Who's your last guy then? Who's your last guy? We got 3 guys left.
All right, my last guy, I went back to the tight end position. Another guy that I like. He's a rookie this year. It's Adam Troutman, rookie tight end for the Saints. They took him in the 3rd round this year out of Dayton. He hasn't produced a whole lot, just like my last guy, Irv Smith, but he's also young. For reference, though, he is older than Irv Smith even now. He's 23. Irv Smith is 22. So even though Irv Smith's a full year ahead of him in the NFL, he's still younger. But Adam Troutman's another guy. Jared Cook's a free agent after the year. Obviously, the Saints are in a little bit of a question mark because Drew Brees is likely to retire. I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback in New Orleans. But either way, I think Adam Troutman is going to be the tight end next year. They put some high draft capital on him in a 3rd round pick. And he's at Dayton. He was the conference player of the year, all that. And obviously, it's a small conference for Dayton football, but he's a very talented tight end.
Yeah. Does it worry you though about quarterback? It might be Taysom Hill and it might not.
I think one of the weeks that Taysom Hill started, he had a touchdown. So I actually think Taysom Hill. I actually think Taysom Hill starting would be a good thing for him because it would lead to a lot of shorter passes and a lot of weird run game plays where he might get a tight end around or something like that. Who knows? So I just think he's a player. What was that?
2 tight end sets.
For
the Saints, which would be helpful for him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think there's a bunch of different ways that he could be used going forward. He's another guy that you can get for probably next to nothing. He was a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick in this year's rookie draft. So you probably can get him for less than that at this point. So.
Yeah. All right, my last guy, our second last guy of our list, and then we'll wrap up the pod for y'all, is Keyshawn Vaughn, someone that, probably was drafted depending on when the hype was and when you had your rookie draft, maybe late 1st rounder, early 2nd rounder, but way too high for what he should have been drafted at, really, anyone who was looking at the actual prospect himself. But I'm picking him more so for these next, maybe just this week in general. I don't know. This might already be a bad take by the time you listen to this. But Ronald Jones probably isn't going to play this week. He had thumb surgery and is also on the COVID list. Leonard Fournette was a healthy scratch last week. So that leaves, I'm sure Leonard Fournette will get a good chunk of carries, but LaShawn McCoy and Keyshawn Vaughn. So this is going to be a good week to actually see what Keyshawn Vaughn can do at an NFL level, because so far we have not seen a lot from him. I mean, my only lasting NFL memory from him is him getting blown up against Chicago when he caught the ball.
Oh my God.
That's all I've seen about Keyshawn Vaughn. But, he's someone that they do decide to move on from Ronald Jones. He's someone that could carry some worth and some value. And I trust him more than a lot of the other random flyer running backs that might be out on the league. Like any of those Jets running backs, I think I'd rather have Keyshawn Vaughn over. Like I don't know, someone I do think could end up being something, but this is kind of like a show me week, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I will say with him, don't give up on those young rookie backs, like especially in Tampa Bay right now, after after just their rookie year. I don't know if you guys remember Ronald Jones' rookie year. He scored 17 points the entire season, had 23 carries for 44 yards.
Yeah.
He was really bad his rookie year. And then now he's one of the leading rushers in the NFL and is the number 13 fantasy running back in half PPR. So I personally wasn't a big Keyshawn Vaughn fan, but I'm not writing him off after one season. I think everything JT said is true. With Fournette, we see they're kind of not high on him and they don't have a long-term commitment to him. We don't know what's going to happen with Ronald Jones after next season. So I think he's an interesting player and I still think he holds value.
So then who's your last guy, Lounis?
So my last guy is another wide receiver. This one on the Browns, the rookie wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's 21 years old, 6'2". And I think what's interesting with him is there's been speculation that the Browns could move on from Odell. I don't know if they will or won't. But what we do see is he's their largest cap hit on offense, getting paid around $18.5 million per. And their offense has been as good as ever without him. Like, I think they kind of proved they don't need Odell, really. You're shaking your head, Jake.
The Browns were getting better every week. It just happens that Odell got hurt and they continued to stay getting better. I don't think him getting hurt necessarily correlates to the Browns being great on offense now. Yes.
I'm not saying they're like I'm not saying like him not being there made them better. I'm saying they don't need him as much as what value they could trade him for. Because Odell still has value on the trade market.
You say he's worth $18.5 million?
Yeah.
18.5. I think if you're like a good team, a contender, especially an aging quarterback, like I think that wouldn't be bad.
For this
Odell's
team,
still
it makes
talented.
For this Browns team, they have a Baker on a rookie contract, Chubb on a rookie contract, and Kareem Hunt on a team-friendly deal. Those are the three most important players outside of Myles Garrett, who they just paid a butt ton of money. But on offense, they can afford to pay Odell, and I think they absolutely should. Obviously, it sucks to see him go down like this, but he's a very, very special player, and we've seen that. And I just think the Browns were, like I said, we're getting better every single week, and they just continue to do so even after he went down. I think that this team would be really dangerous now in two facets of the game if they obviously running the ball, but also passing more so if they had Odell healthy still. I really think people are overreacting to this. They got good when Odell got hurt take.
No, and I do agree. Obviously, it is better with Odell. Again, I'm not saying Browns without Odell is better than Browns with Odell. I'm saying Browns with the value that you get back from trading Odell.
Okay, but what do you get back? You have what do you get back? You saw the Giants got back. They got back a first and Jabril
Peppers.
And Jabril Peppers. There's no way they're going to get even close to that coming off of an ACL injury.
You could definitely get a second.
I don't know. Okay, I don't think trading Odell for a second is a good value.
And what I will say about Peoples-Jones, because I see Frank hating on me now. In all the games in the games that he's played over 50%, at least 50% of snaps, he scored double-digit points in each of them, including the last 2 weeks.
Great.
My only take on Donovan Peoples-Jones, and it's an important take. He gets an increase of value when you watch the Gus Johnson reporting of him and how he says his name. That's all that sticks in my head about Donovan. Exactly. That's all that sticks in my head about Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I think that just increases the hype on him. Just based on
he made some nice catches. I don't know if you saw that catch on that last Cleveland drive.
He looked okay.
JT on this one, the announcing of his name is just too good.
I think that's about it right there. That's about it.
I'm just saying he's interesting. If he ends up being solid, I'm gonna just say I told y'all so.
What would you pay for him?
I mean, we do that with literally every take we have, Lounis, so nothing's new there.
What would I pay for him?
Lounis be like a 5th-round pick.
Probably like a early third.
Early third. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do
first half of the third.
I would not do that.
I think he's gonna be all right. Watch him the rest of the season.
Lounis is back. We gotta go.
Watch him the rest of this season.
I guess that is a good place to wrap it up. We'll leave you all with the bad case.
It's a good game this weekend. I'm coming for your head, Jake.
Go for it. Let's see it.
He plays the Giants.
All right.
I hope he goes off against the Giants.
I think.
Oh my God, that would make my entire weekend. That would make my entire weekend now. I don't even care if the Browns win. I just want him to go off.
All right, that's fine.
We'll report back next week with what happens with this. But with that, I think it's a good time to wrap up the episode 15 of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty podcast. Go check out the YouTube 3rd and 20 on YouTube. You'll get to see our lovely faces. You'll see our lovely faces and Jake's. All I gotta add, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you checked it out, I'll give you guys one more pat on the back to sign us out.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.